I don't know about you this morning, but you ought to be feeling something. I told Chris this morning, I said, I ain't been nervous in a while to preach. Now I know why I am. Everything that's happened this morning has led to what I'm supposed to preach this morning. God said to call this, if you can, I think it's been called this before, I'm not sure. But is the giant in your life bigger than the God you have inside you? We talk about steps, taking that next step, and what's in front of us, and where we're supposed to go, and what's causing us to not take that step. Since you started preaching steps, and Chris preached steps, we got to take that next step. We got to move into that next step. I was sitting back there when they were preaching, and God said, start listening, which I always do, but He put something on my heart, and Friday and Thursday, I was sitting there, and I was looking at it, and there's a couple of guys that I follow on YouTube. They're called the Skit Guys, and I love them. They do a lot of Christian skits and stuff, and they got one that's called the God Chisel. And he led me, and he's like, I want you to pay attention to this. And I've seen it before. And it's about God coming in. You're talking to yourself in the mirror about this dead weight that I have. There's things that I need to get off of me in order to take the next step in my spiritual walk. And you're looking in the mirror and you're praying, God, I want you to fix me. God, I need you to fix me. God, I want you to take this and throw it to the side. Then God shows up, and he's like, here I am. And you're confused. Well, why are you here, God? Well, you just asked me to get here. You asked me to come to be a part of your life and to help you to mold you and to chisel this off of you. And so I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be good. They got a script you can buy. I was going to buy it, and I was going to have Peyton or Ashley help me with it. And he's like, stop. I said, stop. Well, why? This is what you want. He said, it is. But we're going to go a different route now. Now I need you to turn to David and Goliath. Well, that didn't even got nothing to do with what. He said, oh, but it does. He said, and then I'll show you this morning. Chris got up here and started talking about running the race and things being in front of you. Is there that giant's there, right? And then the second song they sing is about David going to the Goliath and defeating Goliath, right? And he gave me 2 verses, or 3 verses. Samuel 1, 17, 45 through 47. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcass of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, but for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Give you into our hands. I said, wow, that's it. He said, it is. He said, but how many of us are going to sit here this morning and hear that and not realize that we have a giant standing there, that all we have to do is say, I come with the Lord this morning. I come to take the Lord with me, and the Lord's saying, look, I can't do it all. I can do everything, but I have to have you to have a little bit of obedience in your life in order to step up and say, I'm going to take this next step, Lord, knowing that you're right there with me. So do you have a God inside you this morning that's bigger than the giant that's standing in front of you to take your next step? Is the devil put something there it don't matter what it is. It could be anxiety. It could be thinking of someone that died that's holding you back that you miss so dearly. Arguing with your spouse, arguing with your friends, thinking of things, lust, whatever it shall be. Is there something in front of you that's keeping you from going up here and helping someone else to take the next step themselves? And I was like, man, I hope I can get that out the way it come to me. And then he played that song. And I'll be darned if that wasn't what it was. And he said, here I am, touching the people. This morning you've seen a little bit of it. You've seen a few of the people shaking off some of that, getting those dry bones back to life, knocking that enemy out of the way, taking and picking up 5 stones out of the river and saying, all right, I've got 5. Why do I have 5? Because it ain't just one giant every day. You got to keep walking. There's 5 days in a week, right? Monday through Friday. And we always look at Saturday and Sunday as being the easy days. Monday through Friday, I need something. I need something to get me to Saturday. Nobody has a problem on Saturday, it seems like. But then Sunday we come, and here I am, Lord. I throwed all my 5 stones all week. I don't know why you gave me 5, but then I look and I say, well, there's them 5 stones that you told me to pick up. That one killed the first one. Now I have 4 more for the rest of the week. But it ain't just 5. He's always giving you more and more and more. And I can say to this morning that I have to have more than 5 stones in my pocket. Because I've got a giant every day that I have to walk through. I have to look in that mirror and say, Lord, whatever's in my way today, I need you to help me to make that next step. I'll take and do something you asked me to do. I'll step forward. But I got to know that you're there with me. And he's like, I've never not been with you. These services that we've been having have been building up to obedience. It doesn't matter if you're saved. It doesn't matter if you are saved. Or you're not saved, or if you're whatever I just said. The Lord said, you need to look at it like this. When I come down that aisle, the other morning you said, somebody needs to come down that aisle. It's about that. It's about showing that you mean business. I wasn't going to do nothing when the Lord told me to go. And when I said what I said about it being obedience, it was meant for everybody. The ones who are always obedient and the ones who aren't. Because sometimes us that are always obedient still have to show the ones that aren't obedient that you still, just doesn't stop. You have to keep pushing forward. You have to keep moving forward. You have to slay the giant that's in front of you to get through the doorway to the next step of the next level. Life's about levels every day. Now, are we going to have a God in us that's bigger than that giant? Or are we going to keep making excuses that God, I don't have enough in me. I don't have that God that's parted the water for the Red Sea when Moses had a God that did that. I don't have the same God that Daniel had when he shut the mouths of the lions. Well, Daniel had that, but guess what we have that they didn't have? We have a little bit of an easier way because Jesus Christ came and died for our sins, and he's here for us all the time, and he walks with us because God's like, you know what? You don't have the faith that those people have, but I can give you the faith that those people have. I can share with you my love with my son that'll give you that faith to know that if I die tomorrow, I know where I'm going. That's a hard reality. To think, do I have a God inside me that's bigger than the giant that stands in front of me every day? It's a question you have to ask yourself inside yourself every day of every second of every day. Do I have that? It's like Mark said this morning, do you have the faith that comes with knowing that you can defeat that giant? Well, we have it. And if you don't have it, you got to grab a hold of it and keep building it. Jesus is the answer. And I know it sounds weird, but I feel like as Christians today, we actually have it harder than they did. Than the disciples in a sense, because they got to see the miracles. They got to walk with Jesus. They got to know Jesus. So yeah, in a sense, it does. It's like, how do you believe that there's a man that did that not knowing? When there's thousands of people. When there's a moment in your life where you're standing there and there's no one around and something speaks to you and it tells you, hey, I'm here. And he breaks your heart. And he shows you, and he physically shows you, not only spiritually, but he can physically show you things and change things and how things will go. That's the Jesus. Our religion is based off of faith. I can't see that there's oxygen in there, but I can breathe it. I know it's there, right? I can't say that I can hold a cup of water in my hand unless I put it in my hand. But I know in my heart that when I pray and something comes on me, there's a feeling that I get that's different than I can explain to anybody in this building. Everybody feels it differently. But I know every day that I have to get up and say, God, I want you to be bigger than anything in my life that's going to keep me from not moving forward, from not being able to finish the race, as Chris said this morning. I want to be able to finish the race better than I started the race. We could easily be saved this morning and sit there all morning. But what's it doing with the person sitting beside you? They may have a giant that nobody knows about. They may have a giant that they honestly feel like they can't get over this morning. They can't get past. And it's amazing to me the story of King David. When we went to Israel, we made a trip and King David in Israel is, to this day, still the most beloved king they could have. Like, period. Me and Ashley have walked in and seen where King David lays. It's amazing. The people that still go every day and pray at his tomb where he lays. It's amazing to me. We took a trip and went over to where the field was that it talks about how him and David and Goliath, the Philistines, were down in the valley and they were up on the mountain, right? We went up into the mountain where they made their camp, and it's unreal. The caves and the things that they built. It's actually not even been excavated or anything. They haven't even touched it. And we were finding pieces of pottery, which is surreal. It makes you think this could have been from that time, right? Because there's nobody there. Nobody to see you. We're not supposed to do it, but we did it. And to look at that and to stand there and watch and to look over this big field, you would think that a big giant man who's only, they claim he was only about 9'9", which is huge. It's about as big as I am, a little shorter than I am right now standing on the stage, right? But in that valley, he's standing there and he's yelling up onto the mountaintop. And it's loud. Like, you can hear people talking from the car like I'm talking to you right now. Could you imagine standing there watching this young boy walk down the mountain? No way he's going to take on that giant. No way he's going to be able to kill that giant. And I guarantee you everybody's talking about him. Everybody. If we were all standing there today and we watched somebody, like we'll use Orrin, for example. If Orrin's walking down the path to go face a giant, I'll use me and Josh, for example. It's a man the size of me and Josh. Orrin versus the guy the size of me and Josh. How many of you in here would be like, there's no way. There's no way that kid is going to defeat that man for our kingdom, for our country. We're doomed. But guess what? David had a God inside him that was bigger than that giant. David had a God in him when he fought those lions and those bears to protect sheep, because that was his job, because he was already blessed and ordained and anointed by God. Before even Samuel went to do it, he was already anointed. We can all be anointed this morning to do what we're supposed to do. We can all be anointed enough to help somebody to get going on in their lives. Whether it be suicidal thoughts, whether it be my friends don't like me and I don't know what to do about it. Because it ain't just for adults, it's also for the kids. The kids have it worse than we do. Because when I was a kid, I didn't see half of what's going on in this world. I didn't have those giants. I come to this church and watch the service every time. It wasn't dry. Somebody made a comment in our group today, the last couple of days, about how we were having too many dry services again. Well, guess what? It wasn't dry this morning. But yet some of us still sit back and say, man, I wish we could just jump in and get soaked from head to toe. And we don't do it. Because I wanted to. I was like, Lord, he's like, no, stand back and watch. Watch and learn that there's some people that are defeating those giants in their life today. CJ defeated a giant that was in his life today. He defeated it. And that don't say that tomorrow he won't wake up or he walks out that door that is not going to come back or another giant's going to be there. But guess what? If he has that God that he had this morning that defeated that giant right then, he'll also defeat that comes tomorrow. I don't know why this service, the way I'm preaching, turned the way it did. I don't. I have no notes. He just gave me the verses and said, go for it. I get so nervous having to get up here and talk without having something wrote down. But when you think about it, 5 stones. I walked down, go back to where we was in Israel. We walked down to the creek bed. And of course, Peyton, being Peyton, because she's my child, she picks up a boulder, right? And you think it's funny, but then you think about it. Sometimes we need to carry a boulder around. Because that boulder may be what saves our lives one day. Because the giant may be bigger than the one, that little rock that I have may not be big enough to kill the giant that's in front of me. So if I carry a boulder around and I'm able to have the power to throw that boulder, I can kill the bigger giant, right? Everybody's rock that they pick up is different than everybody else's. It's a different size in a way, but it's all the same. Everybody's giant is all the same. It's one person that put it there in front of us because he knows that if you can get through that doorstep to that next step, that somewhere else or somebody else is going to receive something more, and he can't allow that. The devil doesn't want us to take any other steps, so he puts that stuff there. Until we realize, and a lot of us do, and we all know it, but we never act on it. Until we realize that God, even me just stepping out, even if I know if I'm doing it right, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're right, if you're wrong, just come out and feel it. It doesn't matter, but that may kill the giant in someone else's life to be like, if they can get up and go do something, I can go do something. And we keep having these these messages, these sermons where it's like we have to be able to take the next step. And God said this morning it's time to tell them. We know why we can't take the next step. Because we're allowing the giant in our life to be bigger than the God that I am. Because I'm bigger than anything. God said this. I am bigger than anything. But if I'm not big inside you, then I can't do what's inside you and fix what's inside you for you to make that next step. If I don't allow God to be the biggest thing in me, that giant's going to overtake me. And that goes for everybody in this building, teenagers and all. Teenagers more than us. Because in high school, I know what I did. I let giants take me. I let a giant stand in the way of me, but I still walked enough to make people think that it wasn't, and I was a hypocrite for it. And I know I was. And I didn't accept that, and I didn't believe that, because in my life, I didn't realize that there's more than just saying you're a Christian. There's more than just saying, well, I know Jesus. There's more every day to know that, yes, I'm saved, but there's also a deeper walk that I have to have in order to kill these giants that keep showing up to me and walking in front of me and keeping me from being able to be who I want to be, keeping me from being able to touch somebody else that may not be here, somebody else that is here, to be a better life, a better husband for my wife, for my children, a better father, a better friend to the people that I'm friends in here with, a better member of the church, a better person to get up here and use the Lord's ministry that He's allowed me to do, because I would have never thought that I would have been this. And people say you always are what you never think you're going to be, and I believe that. I love to talk, but I never would have guessed that I would have been up here doing this, and God using me the way He's using me. And you know what? I'm going to let Him continue to use me. But I also know that I fail too. I have bad days. I have days where I'm sitting there and I'm going, is it really worth it? If you don't question yourself every once in a while, you're not learning, you're not growing. I question sometimes, God, how do I know that it's really worth all that I'm doing? That going up front and praying before every service. That talking to somebody that may not even want to listen to me. Praying for somebody. Trying to be the best example I can. Is it worth everything I'm doing and killing these giants in order to touch somebody else? Because, yes, the goal is to get to heaven and to be in heaven and to walk and to do everything I'm supposed to get myself there. But God wants us to take as many people as He can with us. If I'm sitting back and holding on to what God gave me and not helping someone else, what's the point? Yeah, I made it to heaven, but if I can't take you with me, if I can't take my family with me, if I can't take friends that I don't even know I'm going to have in life, eventually, people that I meet on the street, it doesn't matter who it is. If we can't all be together, then what's the point? And people have those thoughts. That's a giant in itself. That's a giant that I have to face every day. Why don't I just give up? Is there anything coming from what I'm doing? Is my message hitting home to anybody? Because you sit back and you question yourself. And you're like, God, and I know you've done it. Because if I'm doing it, and you've been doing it a lot longer, God, am I really getting through to somebody? Even if you have one or two people to tell you, hey man, you're right on. Sometimes you're like, yeah, but people just tell you that to make you feel good. But then you get up here and you speak after hearing the message this morning, before my message, the song, what you said, what Mark said. And it lines up. And a little bit of everything comes together at the end to where there's a giant standing in the way. Because I didn't know where this was going. Like I said, my message was over looking in the mirror and God taking a hammer and a chisel and knocking dead weight off for you to be able to carry on to the next step. And right there shows that it would have come together that way. But to know that He can switch it and say, guess what? I just need you to read those verses because you come with me, because I'm going with you. And that's what David did to defeat a physical giant. Why can't we do that when we have a spiritual giant? Why can't we do that when we just feel down on ourselves? When we're having thoughts of, I'm going to give up because there's nothing working. I don't get it, but I get it now. And I understand it. And I know that in order for us to be able to take these next steps, it's time to start telling ourselves, and ask ourselves, do I have a God that's in me bigger than the giant that's in me? Because God's already said I'm bigger than everything. I made a way for everybody. He says it in his book. If you read the Bible, he tells you. Like I said, he was there for Moses. He was there for. He came down and showed fire to Elijah and the people that didn't believe it. He pulled water out of the ocean, put it on an altar, and still lit it on fire. But people still didn't believe. How? We see miracles all the time. We may not know that we see miracles all the time, but we see it. Every time I get up here to preach, I miss Ricky, because to me, he was a miracle. Because I remember Ricky when Ricky was wild when I was a kid. I remember things Ricky did. But every time I seen him sitting there, I knew. And I know now. I know where Ricky's at. I know where other members are. I know where Dale's at this morning. Dale did. He flopped back and forth a little bit, but I know that in the end that he made it right. I watched Bobby Joe. I worked with him for I don't know how long, a little bit, and knew him from the park, knew him from a kid. He always aggravated me, bring frog legs over to Paul all the time. I know he was a wild guy, but I know where Bobby Joe is. I know where my Uncle Bobby is, who, bless his heart, he said it till almost before he died, he was not going to change his life. He wasn't going to do it, but he did it. I watched him. I stood up there and held his hand. Me and Ethan did it, and he told me, I'm going to see my mom and dad. I'm going to be with my Heavenly Father and my spirit and my actual mother and father. I know that he died and went to heaven. They slayed those giants in their lives, and nobody would have thought that they could have done it. And guess what? This morning, we can do the same thing. We can accept defeat. We can accept that we're not ever going to be anything, or we can say, God, I need you to be the biggest thing in my life from this moment forward in order for us to be able to take this church to the next step. And we keep hearing that. I know we do. Us three have preached it I don't know how many times. Everybody that's got up here, even Ethan, got up here and said it's time for someone else to do the step that they have to do to move on to the next level. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's the choir. It doesn't matter if it's somebody that comes up here all the time. Josh comes up here all the time. But it shouldn't just be on him. And if it is him, I guarantee you he'll do it. I was aggravating him this morning. I said, you sure you don't want to get up there and preach this morning? He said, well, if the Lord tells me I got to, I guess I will. But that's the way we should be. That we all say we want to do something, but we never do it. Don't be the people that sit there and say, I want to get past this and I want to move on, but we don't do it. Because this morning was the time. And I thought, man, yeah, I'll get to get up there and he'll light me on fire and it'll all come together and we'll get to have another shouting service. And God said, no. They missed it. This morning they get to just hear you talk. Hear the sound of your voice. Tell you that you have a giant that's standing in the way of us moving on. Each and every person in here. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you come to church here all the time. This morning, it is time for you to kill the giant that's in your life. Whether it is that you need to be saved, whether it is you just got saved and now you don't know the next step. That's a giant. Giants come in every shape and form. Some bigger than others. And I'll promise you one thing. When you start doing more for God, it does not get easier. It feels like that giant just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's nothing you can do about it. But somehow, he keeps getting knocked back down. And I keep him to go through the next stage and walking through the next step. Because me and Chris, when we talked, and somebody told me that Chris said he got up here because I wasn't here that morning. You said, Bubba kind of hurt my feelings, talking about people not doing what they were supposed to. And I thought, well, crap, I didn't want to make him upset. And then they said, no, he said that you were right. And he deserved to be upset. If I made him upset by what I said, then that's because he was wrong. Because I do the same thing. He did the same exact thing to me. But those are giants that you face in your life that you come through and you're like, you know what? I'm on the right trail. But then something pops up and you're like, I thought I was doing everything right, God. I thought I was walking that trail that I was supposed to do and being there. And I show up, I pray I try to pray before every service. I make a point to come not for myself, but for the service. I come to pray, Lord, if there's somebody that walks into this building, I pray that they find it. Not because of me, not because of anything else. I don't need it. I want them to get it. I want them to have it. And I think I'm doing such a hard job for you. And then something pops up. I get in an argument with my wife. I do not like to argue, and she does not like to argue, but things happen in marriage. And we don't argue all the time. I don't mean that. But when you have that, you're like, what did I do? And then you're like, well, am I wrong or is she wrong? I don't know. And you have to figure it out, right? Well, with God, it's the same thing. But 9 out of 10 times, we're wrong. Amen. Well, no, I ain't even going to say 9 out of 10 times. With God, we're always wrong. We might want to not admit it and say, no, God, no, I'm not wrong. I can prove it to you, God. Well, good try. Because I'll just tell you right now, you think that giant's big now, you tell God he's wrong, and you're going to find a bigger giant in life. And I don't want to cross that bridge. I don't even want to attempt that. Lord, strike that thought from my mind. I don't even. But like you said today, we have a giant coming up on Tuesday for everybody in this country. However you believe or don't believe. If you don't let God lead you the way you're supposed to be led in this election, you probably, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like to talk that way either, but it's so hard to see where we're going. It's scary. Because I used to remember when Dad would talk about elections when I was a kid, he wouldn't hardly ever talk much about it. And I remember asking him one time who he was going to vote for, and he told me, you don't ask nobody that, son. That's personal. I'm like, okay, I'll never ask again. You know, because you just didn't back then. But you never heard people talk about, man, this country's going to hell. I never heard that. I mean, I'm sure it was there, but not like it is now. I mean, I'm sorry. If Peyton ever come home to me and told me she wanted to be a cat, I don't know the thought process that I would have. And I'm a very blunt person. If y'all don't know who I am, I will speak it like I feel it. And I just tell you, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with some of the mess that's going on. And I tell Ashley all the time, I'm like, how do these people believe things that are coming out of people's mouths? You can be whatever you want to be. No, you can't. You physically can't do that. It's impossible. But I can tell you what I can be. I can be a light for God. I can be someone who says that Jesus is king, and someone who says that Jesus is the way regardless of how you feel and what you want to be tomorrow. Jesus doesn't change. God doesn't change. And you're not going to tell me that God did this and God changed and that God's a different God today, because I'll just tell you right now, if God was a different God today than he was back then, he wouldn't be perfect either. God's never going to be wrong. And until we figure that out, this country is on its way. But I tell you, and you've said it before, you better just be right for yourself. You better find in yourself what you need and what you got to grab a hold of and where you need to be, and know that you're going to heaven, and stop worrying about everything else and try to take as many people as you can with you. So here we are. So hopefully this morning, everybody looks inside themselves and says, I've got a giant standing there in the way. I've got something that's holding me back from taking this church to the next step. And not even this church, but myself spiritually taking it to the next step. Being able to be more for someone else, not just myself. Because like Ethan said, we all want our family to be saved. We all want our friends to be saved. But what are you doing to help them to get there? Are you taking care of the things in your life in order to be able to talk to somebody else? To be able to lead somebody else? If not, then it's a dead conversation. You can't fix somebody else if you're not fixed. It is. I can't do something myself if I'm doing wrong, and I tell you that you're wrong, but I'm doing what I'm telling you you're wrong. What am I fixing? I'm just being a hypocrite. And I don't want to be that. I want to be more every day. Now I feel like I'm rambling, and that's okay. But again, God said, look inside. This morning was it. This morning was set up. The table was set. The water was stirring. Everybody could have come and could have killed the giant that they had in their life to be able to move on to the next giant in their life, because it's never going to stop. It was here. That wet service we were talking about, not those dry services, it was here this morning. It was here. Some of us got it. Some of us didn't. Some of us still sat back and watch it. And that's okay too. Doesn't mean that you're wrong or you're going to hell, but you're just missing out on the blessings that come with it. You're missing out on the next level. And for the kids who play video games, it's just like leveling up. Like Caston loves Fortnite, right? It's like jumping up to the next level and getting a new gun sometimes, or getting a new skin in life. Sometimes you've got to be obedient in order to get to the next skin that you want. Because we got to shed off the dead skin anyways every day. We got to get rid of that dead weight. We got to kill that giant, get it off our back, get it out from in front of us, and move on to the next step in order to be who we're supposed to be for God. I've got some big decisions coming up. I talked to Chris about it. I eventually got to talk to you about it. But the Lord's leading me to another way, not just getting up here and preaching, but stepping out of a little bit of a comfort zone that I have. I love to talk, and God says, yeah. And I'm happy about that. So now he's wanting me to kind of transition into something maybe a little more universal as far as, I won't say podcast, but it's kind of like a podcast, but it'll be more just to kind of help people in this church or whoever to have something to look on during the week. God said it's time to take it to where you could give what you have. Have conversations with people, to uplift people, that they can listen to it during the week and be like on a Tuesday and be like, you know what, Lord, I'm struggling. Is there anything that can help me to get through this? And I pray God leads me to have the words on that day that I release it, that you get it. Whether it takes off, I'll see. But the Lord's leading me another way. I'm still going to do this, but He's working on me some other ways too, because it's scary. Especially with all the backlash people get on the internet. I don't care. You can talk about me all day long. You can throw rocks. Big boy, I can take it. But the only people that throw rocks are the ones that know they're wrong. Besides David. David threw the right rock. So with that being said, this morning God said that when you walk out of here, to pay attention and to understand, just because you have a giant in your life doesn't mean that you can't get past that giant. Pull up Scripture. Read what David said. I come with the Lord. The Lord comes with me, and I'm going to kill this giant. I'm going to get it out of the way. So that's all I got. I don't know if anybody's got any announcements or anything. Amen.
Testing one. There we go. That's got it. Tremendous sermon. Do you hear what the Lord's saying to us? You're going to have to, God's big enough for whatever you're going through, but you got to make Him as bigger than your problems. And that's what you got to do. I can't take you there. I can't help you. Only God, you and God, and you got to decide He's that big. I want to say how proud I am of you, church. Again, yesterday, a family, and a lot of them that are from out of state, and we asked them to stay and eat. All of them stayed and eat. They felt comfortable. Everybody doesn't do that, church. I know we think that's what you're supposed to do, and it is, but everybody don't do that. And I am so thankful for how you treated them, welcomed them. They felt that way. I'm proud of Wayne. I told 4 or 5 different people, this church cooks good food. They said, I know, Wayne takes me a plate. You ought to be proud of that, and I know the Lord is. Wayne takes 20, 30 plates to this community. That's every time we have one. That's what Jesus wants us to do. And I'm so proud of what you guys are doing. Keep doing what you're doing, but do what Bubba says. This is an individual thing. Don't come to church and think somebody's going to lay their hands on you. You're going to get deliverance. You're going to learn how to be delivered, but you're going to have to make up your mind when you're facing your giant. My God's bigger than it is. And you can't call on Chris, you can't call on Bubba, you can't call on me. It's not mine and your God. It's the God that you know loves me enough to do it for me. Now, also next week, I will be putting up another sign-up sheet for our insurance. Our insurance went up $2,600 this year. I called another company. I called a state office and found out what all the Church of God's use in the state of Tennessee. I had them quote us a price. I sent them everything we're insured. They came in within $90 of the same price. I'm looking at one more insurance company, but due to hurricanes and all these natural disasters we have, our insurance is skyrocketed. The list now for $25 a month to meet the quota we need, I have to have 33 people. Used to 20 covered it. So I'll be putting up a sheet, and I didn't put extra lines on there. There's 33 lines. We are going to pay $10,000 this upcoming year for insurance on this building. And I promise you, we're not over-insured. We couldn't get it built back by somebody for what we're insured for. It's just, it is what it is. If you got a better plan, I'm all ears. I've went to 3 different companies. That's all I know to do. If you think of somebody that you think might, we can send them our policy and let them look at it, but I can't find nobody. And so it is what it is. So all of you that can, keep signing up. You never have too much money in church. I'm fixing to spend some on these bathrooms. We are going to remodel starting in the next couple of weeks. We're going to redo all these bathrooms back here. We're going to paint. I'm going to retile. We're going to put in new sinks, new commodes. We're getting everything up to date there. After that, I'm going to do my office. After that, we're going to do this. After that, I'm going to upgrade the gym. I've got plans till I die. But I'm going to be doing something. All I'm doing is asking you to fund me. I'll do the work, and I got some good help. But we're going to get this church up to grade to where I'm pleased with it. And you say, well, is it about you? No, it's about the Lord. Because I know what the Lord showed me for the future. If the Lord tarries, the next person that takes my place, I don't want them to do all this stuff. I want them to. Daddy physically, his ministry, he built the buildings. I upgraded them and trying to get it functional. I hope the next ministry gets to use it like God wants it to be used. We've got a heater now in the gym. We will not be using the kerosene anymore. Kerosene's dangerous. If one of those kids walk in front of those things and it comes on, you can get badly burnt if you're standing next to it. If you've ever been around it, when it comes on and it don't give you no warning until it goes poof. Now we've got heat in there where you touch a button. It's all on the propane tanks. I'm trying to get this, and that's what God's telling me. I want this building to be used a lot during every week. And I want it where everybody can use it, where nobody has to come down here. Thank Kevin and Lisa for them for the Halloween. They stole all my kids. I didn't even have a kid come down there. But man, ain't it great that your kid can get all the candy they need in a Christian environment, in a safe place. And if you think Kevin does everything to the max and beyond. You can go down there, there ain't nothing you can think of that he ain't already got sitting on the table. And as far as Bubba's saying, I'm excited about what he's saying. I don't know how to use technology. People kept asking me during the COVID, why don't you put sermons on? I said, I don't know how to do that. And I don't like to ask people to do stuff for me. If I don't know how to do something, I just don't like to do it. But God gave me people in this church. You know how to do it. Don't think you're crossing my place. I don't know how to do it. But it needs to be done. But I don't know how to do it. But if you do it. We should be excited on Tuesday if we're going through trouble to turn on a computer and there's Bubba, there's Justin, there's Chris, there's Ro, there's Mark. Somebody from our church. I like to know who I'm listening to. Somebody from our church is giving us a word from God. I mean, it's on the internet, but I like to see the person doing it. And Kevin, I know he's got all kinds of things. Don't stop thinking. Whatever crosses your mind, do it. We're getting, Blood Soul called me the other day. We have signed up or put our name on a waiting list. It's not, but they said, we're calling to get permission to dig on your land. And I said, well, if you're going to dig on my land, go ahead and put me a box in. I want it at home. And I also want it at church. So they said, well, we've got you on the list. When we can get in these classrooms with these smart TVs that Kevin's put up, you can pull up, not the Veggie Tales and not Barney and something we watch. You can get up-to-date programs for whatever age, church-related, to help in teaching your class on a screen. And we're going to use this thing. And Kevin, I'm going to say it now. Don't come to me and tell me what program you're doing and how to do it. I don't know. I trust you, son. Just run with it. You know what's best and know what to do. Man, he's talented. He's gifted. And Bubba, don't come tell me you're going to do a podcast. Just do it. Tell me how to get on there. I want to see it. Use us. God's given this church gifts to use. Use what you can do. I'm old school. I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing the best that I know to do. I'm ladder, hammer, and saw. And I'm too old to learn anything different. But God, I'm thankful for people that can. Do it, baby. Run with it, and go. You got something or you just waving at me?
The album was $550.
Wow.
But we will put it toward buying the turkeys and the rolls. Every bit of it will go toward the McDaniel family. So I appreciate you all doing that.
Thank you, man. That's an awesome offering. Thank you very much. God bless you. See you Wednesday night. Amen.